Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Viewers, if you remember, since the day National Action Plan was conceived, we have been talking about various aspects of it and which aspects are being fulfilled, which clauses are being met, and which clauses have been ignored so far. One big issue was with the proscribed organizations, especially those that are outward looking, not inward looking. And we kept on questioning why is it not happening. One of the biggest reasons that we were given was that there is a fear of blowback. Whenever you try to take action against so many disparate groups all over the country, there might be some kind of blowback. But eventually we have seen that the country has started acting against those groups as well that maybe once were thought untouchables in this country. Jamaatul Dawa, one of the proscribed organizations, its leader has been put under house arrest, and now we are seeing that the government of Pakistan is responding and talking about it as well, telling that this was done in the national interest. On the other side, we look at the reaction from a certain coterie, from the Indian side. Repeatedly, there is this emphasis that this has been taken under foreign pressure. The point at this moment is whether it was done in the national interest, whether it was a result of the advocacy of people like us, or whether it was done under any kind of influences. It is something that is actually helping Pakistan get rid of all these troublemakers who have been creating so much problem. So why would anybody actually project it as if it is being done under duress, and that's why compromise the space for Pakistan? So this is one aspect that we are going to discuss, but there are others that we will be taking into cognizance. For example, National Action Plan, what parts are still to be implemented and which parts have been. We are going to discuss all these things, and we have got a very distinguished panel with us. We have with us Imtiaz Sahab, Senior Analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood Sahab, needs no introduction, is my teacher of sorts. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Khalique, again a senior analyst, a columnist, and also a poet. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Imtiaz Sahab, I have to start with you. What would you say to anybody who suggests that whatever action is being taken in Pakistan is because of some foreign pressure, not our domestic agenda?
Well, I think this pressure has been on for quite some time. This is nothing new, and the government was pretty familiar, on the ruling party in particular, have been familiar with what kind of pressure that is and why is it coming from Washington and particularly from India. So this was, I think the measure that the government has taken is not surprising at all. I would, however, while welcoming it, interpret it as a recalibration of policies by the state of Pakistan, by the security apparatus as a whole. It's a calculated move. However,
a recalibration that started just now, or that started
I think this
in
has
2014 December, when our children were killed and National Action Plan was conceived?
No, I don't think so. I think Mr. Trump in Washington has made a big difference. It has been sending shock waves across the world, and perhaps there's a fear of him also breathing hot and cold on Pakistan very soon, because whatever India says resonates in Washington, and obviously Pakistan cannot be oblivious to how the elites, how the military, how the security establishment in Washington looks at Pakistan.
So it is precautionary recalibration, you are saying this?
Recalibration, but it's a very minor step. The issue, actually, the bigger issue is, if at all Hafiz Saeed had been involved in illegal activities, unlawful activities, So why was the government silent so far? All of a sudden they realize, although they've been operating from the same premises and campuses that have existed.
Imtiaz Gul Sahab, academically this is a beautiful question, but the problem is we cannot go in the past and change it. We have to move forward. General Sahab, your take on this action so far?
Well, I think it's a welcome action, and what we need to do now is to really do it in such a way that the world also feels more confident that Pakistan did it in the interest of international peace as well as in its own interest. Okay. And I think there has been a general feeling in Pakistan that it is truly in our own interest rather than in the, well, it is also in the other countries' interest, but it is more so in our own interest that we really curb these militant groups. They are of no help to us. And then you see, the problem is that these groups are also not helping the Kashmir cause. In fact, they are giving an alibi to India to divert its attention on these groups rather than on the resistance movement that is taking place and the sacrifices that the Kashmiris are doing. So the Kashmiri people also don't want these groups to behave the way that they have been. So actually, you are harming the very fundamental cause that you have been pursuing for the last 70 years, either inadvertently or advertently.
Right. So, General Sahab, you must have studied the statements that have been coming from Indian NSA, Ajit Doval, and repeatedly there was talk of offensive defense and the strange kind of philosophy, doctrine, ideology, whatever it is. They kept on talking about it. And one aspect was that we don't want to work with Pakistan government to take care of the terrorist groups first. We would do whatever it takes to weaken Pakistan, and then later on we will focus on these terrorist groups. Now, on one side we see repeated a suggestion that this action should be taken from India as well. And then on the other side, the moment Pakistan takes some step, immediately there's celebration. Premature kind of celebration, and that can create some kind of blowback in the country. Is it part of the offensive defense strategy, or is it because they are childish in nature?
Well, I think, there, of course, there is a history between India and Pakistan. There is always suspicion between the two countries. So even if you are very genuine and sincere in your policy and your actions, yet they might still think that you really don't mean it. So I think in order to restore the confidence, there has to be a greater level of transparency between the two countries. And I think what India has been also trying to do, and exactly what you said just now, their aggressive policy or offensive policy towards Pakistan, that needs to change. Because if you want the government of Pakistan, the people of Pakistan to support the move of this government to curb these militant groups, then you can't have India also remaining hostile to you. Right. Because if they remain hostile to you, and then these people also become internally hostile towards you, then you are in a real mess.
In a pickle, actually. Yeah. That is true. Khalique Sahab, our side has to cooperate. We have been trying to do that in the past as well. Apart from what we have just done, that is our internal agenda as well. Any country that cannot control militant groups within its four walls and either allows them to attack its own people or any foreigners for that matter, doesn't have that kind of writ of law that is supposed to be there. But having said that, I'm looking at the other side of the divide as well. I'm looking at the Indians, and something has changed in India in past 2 years. Now their discourse has shifted so aggressively towards confrontation. Do you think whatever Pakistan does is going to have any positive impact at all?
Thank you, Farooq. I think in the long run, yes. In the short run, perhaps we have to be a little more patient and stop reacting and to whatever Ajit Doval or any other people in India, their media particularly, say. Because if we react and make an ego, individuals must have an ego. To an extent, having an ego is important, and it helps. But for countries, for nations, I think it is our interest, our collective interest, that has to be paramount. One is that, and the other thing is that, let me be very candid. I mean, you know, this whole Indo-centric understanding of the world that we have in Pakistan, I think that has to change. India is one of the many countries that we are neighbors with, because if we think that we are an independent, sovereign state in this region, then India is one of the 4 or 5 other countries who we share borders with.
That is true, Harissa.
And two, if you allow me to finish,
Yeah,
and two, yes, we have long-standing issues with India, but we have also we have to understand that India has a bigger say in international politics, because we have to understand the political economy of the world.
Geopolitics is one thing, and I totally get your point. I understand that we have to be patient with India and patient with so many other countries. That is a given. But I'm not talking about your or my patience. There are people who have been programmed. There have been regimentation for quite
Who
some
has
time.
programmed them?
No, with due respect, any religious extremist group might have done it. Maybe yesterday you and I might have done it, but now things have changed. At this moment, we are talking about taking action. So is it not counterproductive at this moment to start celebrating something, especially projecting it as India's win, in view of the fact that there might be some kind of blowback?
You see, again, the whole point is our Indocentrism. I mean, why can't we see
Your
it
and
as
mine?
our own win?
Your and mine?
No, yours and mine. I mean, it's a collective thing.
I'm talking about a common man on the street as well.
There's the common man on the street, the lay person in Pakistan, unfortunately, is the kind of issues that the common person faces in Pakistan is. These are all middle class, affluent middle class, elite issues that we are speaking about tonight. I'm sorry, I'm being very candid. The common person finds it hard to make ends meet. So let's not.
A terrorist is killed, and at his funeral prayers, you see huge gathering. So there must be somebody.
Because the whole of South Asia is quarter of the world's population, and we are 200 million people anyway.
Exactly.
So
I'm just qualifying the.
No, but the common person, you see, it's
the possibility of
there
blowback.
are so many. You see, there are so many factors involved.
Okay.
Fine. I mean, common person in Pakistan has this. There's this evolving sense of identity about being Pakistani, that is fine. But there are people who actually feed them with certain kinds of information and with certain kinds of mindset. So I think that is important that we change that course, and people who call the shots, people who are at the helm of affairs.
Brilliant point, and that's why Pakistani state actually conceived National Action Plan. And
well, I don't think so. Whether the current action is a part of, but Farokh,
bits and pieces, we are trying to deliver something.
Farokh, of course we are, and I'm an incorrigible optimist. Fair enough. But the point, and you and I both, and people, everybody here tonight. But the thing is that I don't see it as a part of the National Action Plan. I see it as a part of an international action plan, and which is very unfortunate. Why should we wait for external pressure to do things which benefit us?
Well, whether it was a direct pressure, whether it was a perceived threat, or there was something else going on, people like you and I have also been pushing for something for quite some time.
Absolutely.
Maybe their efforts might have succeeded as well. But sir, you said that this is a small step, Hafiz Saeed and his internment. What are the largest steps that Pakistan needs to take?
Well, I think follow up the detention with actions that outsiders expect of Pakistan. The Indians call it the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan.
Okay.
Many Pakistanis call it the centers of extremism, breeding grounds for extremism. The Wahhabi, the Salafi school of thought, this radical trans-border
Once again, you
ideology.
said that the outside world actually thinks. I, as a citizen, have similar concerns. Why would you not look at me rather than looking at other people sitting abroad?
Yeah, because so far the state has been immune to or insensitive to what Pakistanis think, Pakistani citizens, whether it's the political parties or the military establishment. I think they have largely ignored. we have been writing about this issue.
Yeah.
I wrote some time back, as far back as in 2009, that Pakistan's enemy is Pakistan itself, just because of these factors. And it has taken the state of Pakistan 7 years now to put somebody under detention.
No, but we are,
if you
we are
may-
talking
if-
about only one aspect.
Yeah, if you
Others.
permit
2
me to
years ago,
complete.
TTP was thought to be some kind of essential devil,
No,
and
I don't
we had
think-
to engage with them.
No, I think you're.
And now we have fought them.
No, sorry. You know, we are misstating facts. TTP was, I don't think, ever considered like until 2009. Yes, but after that,
2014.
let's not get into that debate.
Imran Khan says that the offices should be open in Pakistan and there should be a dialogue. And there was an attempt
well,
at engaging them.
no. What do you want to achieve here?
I'm
Are we
just-
talking about Lashkar-e-Taiba? They point.
No, National Action Plan, and I was just
So
telling you that
that's what
it
I'm-
might be bits and pieces. We are
Yeah.
doing something, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what do you expect from a state that has been in a flux for more than 5 decades, where there's been discord between the civil and military leadership, where civilian leadership has been reluctant in taking hard decisions, where the military has been treating Afghanistan as its turf.
And I'll immediately go to the military man, a person who is also a sort of statesman as well. So your take on whatever has been said so far.
Well, I think he has very valid points. He has raised some very valid points. Now, let's forget about the past. Let's look into
Yeah.
the future and the present. There's no point in talking about the past. I think it is in the interest of Pakistan, truly. It is not that we have anything against any group or anyone. Point is, you want to normalize your state. What does normalization of a state really imply in terms of Pakistan, in reference to Pakistan, not terms, in reference to Pakistan? It means that the state should really formulate the policy. The non-state actors should not exist. In fact, the non-state actors should only be be allowed to function in a way which is helping the community, like, you know, what they call the NGOs. And they should have no militant role at all whatsoever. And if they give them a militant role, then the state is abandoning its responsibility and then creating a situation wherein the foreign powers, and especially those who are hostile towards you, giving them a full leverage to exploit you.
That's very true.
So this is what has happened.
Right, absolutely. But what happens if a person who has been part of a proscribed organization, has been internationally banned, eventually decides that he wants to form an NGO and function without violence? Do you think that that should also be allowed?
Well, you could allow him, provided you are absolutely certain that he genuinely means what he's doing. But if there are any doubts whatsoever, you see, after all, many militant organizations look at the way that what Ireland has done. You know, if they really transform themselves into genuine political and social entities, then there is a likelihood that we could do that. But are you sure? Why are they making political statements?
That's true.
Why are they trying to interfere with the policies
And
of
all these rallies as well. That's true.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, sir. But my argument has been constantly that two kind of people cannot be mainstreamed or reintegrated. One, the person who has been caught or banned internationally. The second one is sectarian groups. Because either of the two, they have such loaded agendas that even if you try to mainstream them, they are going to actually destroy the effort and not help at all. Let me take this question about the way forward. What else can Pakistan do? Jamaat-ud-Dawa is one thing. There must be other parts of the equation as well. For example, we keep on hearing about Haqqanis. We hear about so many other groups that are there. And they are part of the overall mishmash of non-state actors that have been accused of doing this or that. What else can we do?
Farooq, I think you cannot speak about the way forward unless you understand the mistakes that we have committed in the past.
Absolutely.
So I
And
don't
we
think you
should
can
be,
shove it under
just
the
to
carpet.
qualify, sorry to cut you, but just to qualify my position, because I thought that you are perceiving as if I'm contradicting you. I'm not. My position is we must have made a lot of mistakes in the past. That's why we are here. But now one has to acknowledge if there is an effort being made.
I'm
to
not
actually
sure.
come back.
I do not necessarily suggest that we made mistakes in the past. You change strategies. I mean, perhaps some strategies worked and some did not.
Okay.
One is that. And the other is that, yes, we also committed mistakes in the past, blunders rather. So I think it is about time that we take stock of what happened in the past, what went wrong, what did not work in our favor, and what can be achieved in future if we change our course. So I think you cannot just say that leave the past behind and look at the future. This does not happen. This has not happened. This is not the natural order of things.
No,
you have to learn. We have to learn collectively.
Learning from the past is good. Living in past is maybe
living in
bad.
past is wrong, but this is again, you have to historicize to an extent. Otherwise, you cannot, take the nation forward.
Totally with you.
So, for instance, I mean, we have to learn from what happened in 1971. We just can't say that, since, a hawkish Indian Prime Minister visits Bangladesh and gets presented with a picture, so we shift all the blame on Indians. We just cannot say that. I think it was, an internal problem. This was to give you an example. This was to give you an example that we have to learn. And after having learned the kind of mistakes that we have committed, then we plan out the future.
Yeah.
And in future, I think what Pakistan can do, coming to the question that you raised, what Pakistan can do is keep its own interests, and as Imtiaz Saab had earlier said, that listen to the citizen and not just listen to the voices, listen to the needs of the citizens.
Absolutely.
The decent, respectable living that all of our citizens must be entitled to if they live in a free country. So I think that will determine our course, and that will determine our security policy, that will determine our foreign policy, and that will determine our economic policy.
That's a very clever point. And since you have mentioned Imtiaz,
but why is that clever? I mean, this is very simple. I mean, this is in front of you. I mean, you have to have the people's
no,
interest.
it is absolutely a fact. And here's the thing. Whenever, my experience, your experience has been, whenever we interact with the people who are working with the state, usually what you hear nowadays is that they are saying the same things that we are demanding or we are pushing for or we are asking. When you talk to a common man on the street, again, common man, unless he is misinformed, usually has the same kind of point of view as well. There is this massive miscommunication or lacuna of disinformation or lack of information or communication that has to be taken care of, and that can be done through effective narrative. Do you see anybody who's actually working on that narrative? I'm talking about
Actually,
the
Farooq,
level of the citizens.
I got your point. Look, you don't cook narratives. Narrative is something that has to be seen through actions. So unless the state moves, complies with the articles of the Constitution which ban private militias, unless it implements the one point of the National Action Plan which says there will be no room for religious extremism in this country, and there is another point which says no glorification on television will be tolerated.
Absolutely.
Which was, by the way, stated in the NAP.
No, that's what I'm saying.
National Action Plan.
And when the National Action Plan said, as well as the Anti-Terrorist Act of 1997 also says, no person, no group would be allowed with a new brand name after getting outlawed, right?
Yeah.
So the narrative will come in existence automatically when the state starts indiscriminate implementation of the commitments it makes. It draws from the Constitution as well as it makes in the National Action Plan, which is basically a reiteration of existing laws. So you don't cook narratives, you perform narratives. You create them through actions.
That is true, but I'm not state. I'm a common citizen. Maybe I have some influence in writing. I have some, mental horsepower where I can write something and convince so many people. So that bit is also important, because yesterday when the news started filtering in, the first reaction, I see a couple of people come on television and they're analysts, they're not even politicians, very aggressive and opposing this house arrest. 5 minutes later, Indian media is jumping with joy and it is claiming it was done at their request or something of that sort. Look, we are winning. The common man gets confused.
So whether the common,
Is
my
it not
problem
your
is,
and my responsibility
no,
as
my
well, sir?
problem is whether the
convince
common,
him.
Farooq, my problem is whether the common man matters in these issues.
He does.
No, he doesn't make the policy. He doesn't enforce the policy.
But he can be radicalized. And he
Well,
can
there are
be
very few-
recruited by a
sorry,
terrorist
the
group.
people get radicalized when they face injustice, when they're deprived of when their rights are infringed upon. So you don't radicalize people just by giving them a certain brand, a certain narrative.
Yeah, that is
so-
true, but you'll notice. General Sahib, you'll also, you must have also noticed on television the kind of discussion
So you have to bail me
we have
out
heard
now.
on television as well, that the end is nigh, that these are the end of time wars and somehow we have to prepare. So there are good people, there are bad people, and the bad people are those who are actually taking care of the state. There has to be some push from the citizens as well. 15 years we have been fighting a war. Intellectuals,
No, you know.
civil society, willy-nilly maybe, but we have been fighting something. People have died, so 70,000 people. So we have been pushing for something. Where is that pushback against extremism from the intellectuals, civil society, others?
Well, that is, I mean, you are asking a very, important questions. But the fact is that they need also very detailed answers. And this question of yours, that why has Pakistan, in a way what you're saying is, where we have landed, what should we do? I think this is essentially the problem that we face today. Well, we should of course know the causes which have brought us here. There was a justification at one time to have these militant groups. There was an international support for these militant groups. And there is a historical background to it. What has happened is that the state changes its policies in accordance with the changing times. What has happened? We have remained static. We have not changed our position and our policies with time and with the threats that we face, both internal and external. And the reason for that is also very complex, because you asked a very complex question, so I'm answering it in a very complex way. The thing is that we don't take decisions on an institutional basis. We take decisions on individuals take decision. Musharraf would take a decision, Zia would take a decision, then similarly here also, the chief of the army, or for that matter, the Prime Minister will take individual decisions. They will never go through the institutional process, which is a part of a democratic decision-making process. So that is why also we have suffered. Now, in order to correct ourselves, what we need now is to see that what are the challenges that Pakistan faces from the internal threat and the external threat. And in the internal threat, these radical forces definitely, who are either oriented towards India or they are oriented towards Afghanistan or they are oriented against us, they need to be handled in a way that they need to be sort of neutralized.
Right.
How you neutralize them? Sometimes they need a force, a military force. Sometimes they need ideological dispensation. Sometimes they would need, some harsh treatment which may border between the two. So I think you need a very subtle and a very complex approach towards each one of them. Are we doing that? We are not doing that. And you see, these...
that's a beautiful comment, but with due respect, it is in reaction to his point of view rather than my question. I was talking
He's
about
not
the
happy with the
responsibility of the common man on the
You have to make him happy.
No, it's a beautiful answer. But it is...
the common person...
Or the intellectual.
You see, always in all countries of the world, whether they are democratic or undemocratic, it's the elite which formulates policy. Irrespective of whether you are a Democrat
Those
or
sitting in the
dictator.
parliament or in the government.
It's an elite. It's an elite. So the thing is the elite responsive to the people or not?
Political elite or intellectual elite as well?
Both.
All elites together,
All
they're
elites.
not.
Now,
Where is the role of intellectual elite?
You see, there is no such thing as intellectual elite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, there are a few intellectuals
I
who
mean, there
belong
could
to
be-
the
there
elite,
could be-
actually.
There could be some
who should be.
intellectuals who are a part of the affluent middle class or a part of the landed aristocracy. So there are intellectuals born everywhere.
Okay.
People with ideas, people with independent thinking. That's fine. But they are elite. And I think the country, you know, it is something very basic that Pakistan actually is, when it is a democracy, it is a plutocracy. Which means the democracy of the rich. When it is not a democracy, it is a martial rule, which means that there is no democracy. So I think it is, I mean, the serious questions that we need to ask ourselves is that the possibility and the agency for the people of Pakistan, the common, what you continue to call common, when you call them common, you actually are creating and accepting that difference which is there. And we are just all of us saying the same thing, that most of the people in the country, about 80-90% of our people, have no say in any kind of policy making in the country. And it will take a long time to include them, and it will take a long time through the ballot, through and going beyond the ballot. Democracy is not just about counting votes. So I think it will take a long time when people are involved, that will.
Fair enough. The trouble is you're actually looking at it as a problem that can only be handled by the government or the state. My issue is I look at it as if it is some.
He's trying to prove that intellectuals, they do matter.
No,
So
it is. It is
intellectuals,
like
intellectuals matter, but those intellectuals matter whose side you see.
Very effective hijack.
But Farooq, intellectuals.
You have to have some sympathy for his viewpoint.
Intellectuals take a position. There are two types of intellectuals.
If
you have Ishtiaq Hussain Qureshi as a historian, and you have Dr. Mubarak Ali as the historian. So they are not. You can't just club them together.
And where do you put the role of the anchors?
They are not intellectuals. Anchors are entertainers. They are not intellectuals.
So present
company not included, of course. But you know what I mean.
He's trying to extract something.
The private television in Pakistan. Look, I mean, you have just touched the wrong chord. Tell me, the President, His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, the President of Palestine, was here in Pakistan for 2 days. Not even one single private television channel or a radio program on the issue of Palestine.
Absolutely.
In the last 3 days.
I totally agree.
I've been, you see, so I was ashamed of myself, because we grew up on our support to the Palestinian cause, on our solidarity with the Palestinian cause. It does not mean that we should not understand what is happening in the world right now. But I'm just telling you, since you spoke about the anchors, and since you
media man actually,
media persons.
No, but so I get your frustration. I share your frustration as well. What I was just trying to tell you humbly or submit here was that at this moment you're looking at the problem as something that can only be tackled with greater tools. My problem is that extremism
at
can
the local
be,
level.
It can be treated as an outbreak of something like polio, and there can be some kind of vaccination effort. It can come from the state, but affluent or influential people can also participate. So far, what I've seen is the state, whatever its narrative is, finally there is some structure of narrative. But when you look at the intellectuals, the media, elsewhere, I don't see that kind of structure, this effort.
I think you have to.
I'm going to come. He wants to say something. Then
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to encroach upon your time. Very quickly, I think you are again putting everybody together. I think in the writers, the artists, the performers, everybody who has anything to do with fine arts or anything to do with creativity, they have taken a very clear position since the beginning. And that's why Taliban were killing dancers and performers and musicians and poets in Swat. And that's why you see this push against freedom of expression and against freedom of to produce and to create. And media is something different. Media is not interested in arts. Media is not interested in poetry. Media is not interested in any. any kind of creative expression,
It is
a
interested
cultural,
in ratings,
creative
right?
cultural expression of society.
it
So I
is-
think there is a problem with the media, but there is not necessarily a problem with the creative artists of any sort when it comes to taking on extremism and building the true, real narrative of Pakistan.
If you insist, sir, I'm not going to lump them together, but with due respect, any channel that is there, television channel, any other vehicle of message communication, that is getting essentially some message. My concern is the right kind of message is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, Farooq, I've been writing, for instance, about illegal mosques in Islamabad. I've been writing against hate speech coming from the pulpit of those mosques in Islamabad. And if the government is not moving...
Red Mosque or some other mosque?
No, other mosques.
he's been-
so please
he's
try
been
to...
tracking the-
Yeah, I'm just talking about the pulpit, the hate speech that it delivers. There is no action. When people are afraid of reporting that issue, the hate speech, to the police, when the police is reluctant in registering a case against that cleric, when even the Home Ministry is reluctant in initiating a case for fear of reprisal in their respective constituencies, what can the intellectual do? I've done it a lot. I haven't seen any action.
Right.
So what else should I explain? I think, is that enough? Is the
No,
response?
do you write in English or Urdu?
Regardless.
Do you write in Urdu?
I've been saying this on television as well.
In Urdu television
On
channel.
Urdu television, yeah.
Right. The point is, if the voices increase and if there is any nature, any quality of coherence in overall message,
Farooq, coherence
it
will come.
resonate,
Coherence
sir.
will come.
It will resonate.
Coherence will come only if the government is seen as moving against all those people who are violating the laws mentioned in the National Action Plan. This is very simple.
Right. Sir, other aspect, if you want to reflect on this, you can. Because this is 9 o'clock, 9:30 or something like that. Later on, at 10 o'clock, you'll see most of the channels. Not all of them. There are a few very educated people also, discussing things on television. But most of them will be critical of the state for wrong reasons, not the right reasons. These issues that have been highlighted, nobody is actually talking about them. There will be somebody sitting there who will be defending the head of Jamaat-ud-Dawa. Nobody there who will be saying it was right, it is being done, and it was in the national interest, should have been done long time ago. What is wrong with us?
No, I think there are certain television stations which are taking a position and they are allowing people to express their views, which are very much similar to what we have been saying. That is different, that they might be having some agendas, but I think the media has been very responsive in that sense. I would not fully agree with you that every media house is trying to sort of promote terrorism or radicalism. That is different, that they also have to look at the commercial angle and they see that what sells most. And the point that was being raised...
I didn't mean that somebody is deliberately
No,
promoting
but
an
the-
agenda. I was saying that they have lost control to ratings. And
Yeah.
maybe they
No,
are
they have
radical-
lost control to
and
money.
Money as well.
Money.
But
Money.
there is push and pull factor. And there is such a factor that they end up giving you the most virulent.
The pull factor
worry.
actually is
You
more
see, the
the
point
pull
is
factor, the money.
Money. And the Palestinian point that you mentioned earlier,
He
that
actually
it
mentioned,
was, it was
Example,
very,
as an
As
example.
an example, it shows that it doesn't fetch any, money in that sense. That they think, well, we already know that the Israelis are committing such crimes against them, so it's not a new story. So, I mean, this is the type of terrible attitude that they have. Whereas, this problem needs to be revived, and his visit to Pakistan is so important in that sense. And Pakistan can play such a vital role in trying to promote the cause of Palestine. And and if the entire country does support the policy of the government, which it has, saying that the people of Pakistan also support the cause of the Palestinians and the suffering, and we completely empathize with the sufferings of the people of Palestine and the cruelty that is being done to the Palestinians, I think we could achieve at least some sort of satisfaction and also have our voice heard, globally.
That is absolutely true, and maybe another example would be Kashmir itself. The way our media has been ignoring the recent suffering repeatedly, that is also there. But with due respect, then since Imtiaz was saying that there is pull factor, that would mean that there are so many radical people among us. They like this kind of content, and that's why the media ends up giving them exactly the same thing. Gerald sir?
Well, I wouldn't think so. I think our people are fairly peace-loving, and I don't agree that our majority of the people think about militancy or support militancy or radicalized or anything like that. I think they need direction, they need leadership, and if the leadership really guides them properly, they will fully support them. You see, the common people in Pakistan want peace. They want the economy of this country to rise. The economy cannot get better if the militancy in Pakistan continues to survive. If our relations with our neighbors stays as it is, if our international reputation continues to remain tarnished, then our economy cannot grow. And if our economy doesn't grow, our common people continue to suffer. So I think the government needs to look at it in a very comprehensive and in a broad sense. And the people of Pakistan need to be educated by the media. And the media, in this case, as you are very right, fails to sort of make them realize that.
They are more
concerned about Panama Gate all the time. Well, it's a very important...
That's not only, that is only one part of the picture.
No, I was going to tell you that Panama Gate may be very important, but it is not the only subject which needs to be addressed.
Absolutely right. And unfortunately, we have discussed Panama Papers here in this program as well, but that is only one side of the picture. Panama Papers is one small issue that might be discussed. One anchor would sit on a private channel daily and abuse people, issue edicts, declare them kafir, and when PEMRA takes action, there is total revolt from the cable operators. There is more or less revolt from the journalists as well. Nobody actually takes PEMRA's side. So this, I have hardly seen anybody.
And the court decision also.
Right, sir?
And the court decision in favor of...
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is some problem we are talking about.
I think there is a problem which is ideological and there is a problem which is institutional. And if you allow me to be candid, people are confused when it comes to taking a decision about who to support and who not to support, because they are still not clear whether the state, all state institutions are on one page, one, and two, if they have seriously reset the button. Because it is a problem. I mean, people are scared, and people have financial compulsions also.
We have seen
being lenient,
killed,
I'm being lenient.
Ministers being killed, Benazir Bhutto's also killed.
So I think it is an institutional problem, but it is also an ideological problem. There is a massive radicalization that has taken place in Pakistan. Even households are divided, and I think there is something very serious, and I agree with you there on the points that at a social level, at a community level, familial level, we have to, every individual has to play a role who thinks that...
I'm really glad that we have come around to the point that I was trying to make, but I'm told that we are running short of time.
They don't want us to agree, Farooq. Your producers don't want us to agree.
We have already agreed. Sir, on that note, I have to conclude, and I have to thank you, Khalique sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood sir. Always a great pleasure having you in the program. Imtiaz sir, thank you very much, sir, for your time and your patience as well. I really enjoy the company and the guidance. Viewers, you have listened to our discussion. In the end, Khalique Saab was talking about the divide, not only the institutional problems, but also ideological problems. And this is what I keep on talking about whenever we discuss narrative. But let us actually use another jargon. Let us use the jargon or language of computer science. There might be a problem with the program. So you need to debug it. And somebody has to start working on that. Unfortunately, when it comes to the entire nation's response to it, I'm not talking about merely the state. Somebody will have to start pushing and will have to come together and form a narrative or debugging program that actually convinces people that the people who kill others cannot be friends of Pakistan or anybody or even brilliant. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.
पर अपने कदम जमा तेरे साथ है तेरा खुदा कश्मीर जो पाकिस्तान में है
Viewers, you have listened to our participants at this discussion. As I have always said, will go on because the issues are more or less the same. But here's the thing. Today we started talking about development, and it brought us right back to the economic agenda and economic issues. And why? Because there are basic issues that need to be resolved, and it is very important that we should have a discussion in the society. Unfortunately, you would perhaps see some discussion in this channel, but not on so many other channels. You will not see it even being discussed in reputable, respected newspapers to that extent. This is something that keeps on worrying us, that maybe while economy is responsible for everything that you do, maybe the word economy is slipping out of our imagination. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.